Hey folks, welcome outside Lambeau Field. I'm Ryan Wood alongside Pete Dougherty.
Lambeau Field right there.
There it is.
Pete, pretty good shot of it actually.
Aaron Rodgers is going to play today.
Yeah, I don't know what you were thinking going in. I was thinking 90% chance, somewhere in there. You know, no one could say for sure, but that's what I was thinking was a really good chance.
Would he have been listed as questionable if this was the old system where probable still existed? Because probable, yeah. 90% is probable.
No, probable was actually like, if you listed him as probable and he didn't play, that better only happen like once a season at most.
Rare.
Yeah, it was because I used, in the early days I always thought it was 25, 50, 75, for probable. What was the other one?
Probable, questionable, doubtful, and out.
Yeah. So I thought doubtful was 25% chance, but that's not exactly how it worked. And so no, they were going to keep it as ambiguous as possible.
Hey, Sherwin Orrin Burks.
He is not.
Second straight week not playing. I'm actually surprised. I thought he was going to play this week.
This isn't unusual. The first week they bring him back and all he does is individual stuff, and then this week he does part-time and team. So I would bet pretty strongly he plays next week.
Blitz Cousin a lot in this game. What do you think?
Great question. I was thinking, last week they'd blitz a lot, and they didn't. They hardly blitzed at all.
They didn't.
Now, maybe they just wanted to play coverage and play confusing coverages against a young quarterback. Whereas Cousins, maybe they will send him.
Matt, it is very warm. Yes, I'm wearing long sleeves, and it's cool in the press box, but I'm sweating right now. It's a warm day here.
Graham has to play well. This is what did you think of his game last week?
I thought he probably was pretty significant. I'm not a coach. I can't break down X's and O's, but I'd have to think he's pretty significant with the three receivers doing what they did. I mean, when you got three receivers to do what Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, and Geronimo Allison did last week, you can't have everyone have big fantasy weeks. So I think it's still out. I always thought with Jimmy Graham, once the regular season started, it'd be really interesting to see if he can still run, because that's really the true indicator. I don't think we know that yet, but I would still think he's going to have a good year. I thought that going in, and nothing's changed my mind.
I had a question about screen passes. I actually think that could be a big I think screens and checkdowns or swing passes will be big today. I'm not sure how well the Packers will run the ball against this team, especially with no Aaron Jones. So the really short passing game and dump-offs might have to be the substitute for that.
So are you saying they should start Ty Montgomery if they have him on their fantasy team? Big day for Ty Montgomery today?
Well, just because they throw it to him doesn't mean it'll be a big day. But yeah, I think he'll see his share of balls. So what score did you pick there, Brian? I'm trying to remember.
27-21 Vikings. And I did make my prediction with the idea that Aaron Rodgers would play. So I think it'll be close. I mean, let's face it, Deshaun Kaiser went against this defense. It would be over pretty quickly. So
they'd say Aaron Rodgers doesn't check down, but I'm thinking with his knee in its current condition that he will check down. I think today will be a day where he does check down. Yeah, I think this is a game where they really could have used Aaron Jones. The 2-game suspension really hurts him today.
With the injury especially.
Because the way he, I know Williams is good in the passing game and he picks up the blitzes. He does all those things that coaches like. But if you really want to change the defense, the way you do it is with a guy who they have to honor as a real threat to run the ball.
Hey, John, yes, Devontae Adams is playing today. He is active. No surprise there. He looked pretty good Thursday when they had the pads on in practice, so I kind of expected he'd be playing, and he is.
Mercedes Lewis, a bigger role this week than last week?
What did he play, 7 or 8 snaps?
Yeah, it was not many.
I would think so, yeah.
They need more pass protection in there,
right? Yep, you need
right?
that, and it helps in the run game, too.
Yeah, I bet we will see. There was follow-up question was about a lot of 2 tight ends. Yeah, we'll probably see a lot of it. What kind of reception that Anthony Barr is in for today?
I hadn't thought about that until just now, but well, he played last year, right? Here?
He did, and that would have been after.
So he's gotten that over with, but I would imagine that Anthony Barr is not going to be too popular in these parts for a long time.
A lot of Clay Matthews questions. What's your take on his performance last week?
I thought last week might have been the worst game I've seen him play. And it wasn't just the roughing penalty. He was falling down on the field. He was out of assignment, and he knew it, I think. So it'll be interesting to see what he does today. Usually a player of that ilk, after a bad game, you would expect them to come back big, but we haven't seen a lot of big lately from Clay Matthews. So
Is he finished? Someone, LD Lake is asking.
I don't know. It depends on what you mean by finished. I don't know if you're ever going to see first 5 years Clay Matthews ever again. I think that's long gone. I think he's still their most explosive pass rusher. I would say that.
There was
even over Nick Perry.
There's a question. I'm not sure of that anymore. I think Perry's the better rusher now.
I wonder.
There was a question about what was it? Short. It wasn't short passing. McCray, bounce back game for him. He actually was fine in the second half last week, which a lot of that I think was due, as Eric Baranchek pointed out, and other people have too, to the no huddle and wearing down the defense. And I wonder if they're going to have to do that today just to try to tire those Vikings
it's a hot
defense.
One.
Yeah. And actually, their key guy is really because they have a lot of really good players, but actually their most important guy is probably Harrison Smith, right? He allows them to do everything they do in coverage.
Everson Griffin.
He'll probably be on Jimmy Graham quite a bit today.
Going back to last week in the pace, that's where catching Khalil Mack at the right time really paid off. It was clear he was gassed by the end of that game. It's week 2, and these guys, have had an off season, so this is a little different. No, Johnny, the Packers are not going to go after Josh Gordon.
I can't imagine.
Would you rather have Josh Gordon or Geronimo Allison right now?
Well, you'd rather have Josh Gordon's talent, but everything that goes with it, and with all the time Cleveland's invested in this guy, to bail now, I didn't read anything about what actually happened, so I don't know if anything's been reported on what actually happened there. That was
missed the meeting.
Was the final straw.
He missed the meeting.
But I just don't see how you take the risk, how you do it.
What do they say, Pete? Availability is the greatest ability. That dude can't play. He can't find the field. As talented as he is, I would rather have a guy in Geronimo Allison that does find the field, is a real pro, has good chemistry with the quarterback, and can produce.
So, I guess the big question is, how do you think Aaron Rodgers plays today?
That is the big question. I think it's going to be a lot like last week. I don't think he's going to be extending a lot of plays and holding on to the football that long. I asked him basically this week, what's the measurement that that I've got to be able to do this to play? And he said basically move around in a small circle, which is effectively saying pocket mobility, which he did have. If you look at the throw to Devontae Adams for the touchdown, throw to even Randall Cobb for the game-winning touchdown, he had pocket mobility last week. That's going to be the big question. Does he have pocket mobility? If he does, he's going to be able to be effective. It's just a matter of how effective he can be against this defense.
Can he make the injury worse? With cartilage, if you have a cartilage injury, I think, now, I'm not a doctor, I think that's pretty clear. I think it's more a pain issue than it is making the injury worse, whereas with ligaments hold the knee together.
Right.
So if those are partially torn, then you have or fully torn, then you have stability issues. I think with cartilage things, it's mostly just the pain, and the pain can be unbearable depending on how bad the injury is.
I would think the big concern is how bad the pain is if you compensated another body part for that pain, because everything's kind of a chain. I think that's one potential concern, and then when you're playing through pain, you're not doing things like you normally do, so you're adjusting somehow physically with how you move. I wonder if he can get in trouble that way. But no, there's no further ligament damage because there is no ligament damage.
Packers inactive list. Did we read the whole thing?
Yep, we already. Yep.
Rodgers is more. Tim Boyle is active, which makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah.
In case they feel like they have to pull him.
I was thinking about that before. Yeah, no, that does, because you don't know if Aaron Rodgers can get through the whole game, and then Deshaun Kaiser did not look great last week. And
Rudolph Ugg answer. Kyle Rudolph, do you think he's a matchup problem?
Yeah, I would think so. I think Kentrell Bryce gets him a lot, or do you think Clinton Dix?
It seems like they even use both of those guys somewhat interchangeably.
Yeah.
Maybe they like to have Clinton Dix back a little more.
He's more the free.
Yeah, so that's the game today. It's a tight end game. That's where not having Oren Burks again in coverage can hurt you, because then you don't necessarily have to cover Rudolph with a safety. You can cover him with an inside linebacker, and then you can have two safeties deep if you want.
I think it was Randy. If Oren Burks is out, who's the other inside linebacker? I mean, it's going to be real interesting because what you saw last week was Blake Martinez and a whole bunch of DBs. I mean, they went 7 DBs, quite a lot, more than I can remember seeing.
We got a between the tackles runner today, good running back.
Can't do that against Dalvin Cook, can you?
No, you got Morrison's going to play first downs, I bet.
Early downs for sure, but what do you do?
You know, what used to be, they used to call guys two-down linebackers. They're one-down linebackers now in this game. It's first down, and that's
What do you do on 3rd and 5?
You got to take your chances that if they run the ball, you stop them for 4, and you got to go small.
That might be taking a chance against the
Dalvin
Cook. He can pick up a 3rd and 5
He's a
against
very
7
good
DBs.
player. You do wonder how they would have been if the Vikings would have had him last year. What if that would have made any difference?
No, I mean, I think the point is that Oren Burks being out is not ideal for this game.
Defense good enough to hold the Vikings to 10 points or less? I say no way.
No, that's really low, Bill. I think
even 17, I think, would be a pretty good game.
Yeah, under 20. I think they can hold them under 20, perhaps. That's not saying they will. I think they can. 10 that's really low.
Adam Thielen needs to be stopped. They are talented. They're pretty talented at receiver. They're pretty strong there, and having Rudolph gives them three options there.
Both of those guys, Diggs and Thielen, have had their day against this Packers secondary these past couple of years. You remember week 2 it was 2 years ago when Diggs just completely annihilated Demarius Randall.
He just destroyed him. That I kind of makes you think that kind of ruined Randall's season. I think it killed his confidence.
I think you're right. So I think this is a really good, that secondary got a lot of accolades last week for what it did against Mitch Trubisky, but this is a really good test against a passing game with a new quarterback, but receivers that have really kind of had their way with the secondary.
The weather here is great. I think that said the high is going to be in the mid-80s, low to mid-80s.
Yeah, it's going to be about 80 at kickoff, I think.
It's very warm right now. The sun's under clouds, so it's not horrible, but when the sun comes out, it's very hot. I have a friend of mine texting me. Is Rodgers playing this week? He wants to know. Actually, he's in a suicide pool, so he wanted to know whether to pick this game or not. And do you play Rodgers if he's your quarterback? And is he going to have think he has a 300-yard day and against this defense with a bad leg?
No, I think this is going to be a grinded out day. Is there virtue though in letting him rest for a week? Look, I think if it was any other team in any other setting that it'd be a lot more likely that they would rest Aaron Rodgers this week. It's just that it's the Vikings and it's at home, and they know that they have to go to Minnesota 3 days after Thanksgiving. So the pressure is on the Packers and what's a 2-team division to win today. I mean, they really need this game. I think that's why he's playing.
I'm thinking you play him. There are reasons not to, but I think the reasons to play him are so much bigger. And maybe the biggest is, if there's not the structural damage, so the risk of aggravating or making the injury worse isn't all that great, then to put him out there sends such a strong message to your team that if the best guy, the most important guy by leaps and bounds, if he's laying it out there on the line, everybody else needs to. Also, I think that filters through the whole franchise. I'm reading the Ulysses S. Grant biography right now, and basically his personality and the way he handled things just seep through his troops, and I think the same will be in a much smaller version with Aaron Rodgers. Just playing him today and him gutting it out, I think says a lot to the rest of the team about how to conduct themselves.
Did you think that the guys around him played better in the second half last week? No,
the
offense hurt or not?
The offensive line sure seemed like it.
I thought so too.
Sure seemed like it. Why don't we take 1 or 2 more questions and then we'll wrap it up?
Mark, I'm not surprised they didn't get in a fullback for today's game. It's a dying breed, and that's just the way it kind of goes. I mean, you're right. If ever they were going to use a fullback, it probably would be today with an injured quarterback against this defense. It's just not used anymore.
I wonder if it'll circle back and fullback will come back into vogue in 10 years, or if it's just will go the way of the dodo bird.
That's usually how it happens, right?
It does sometimes, although that position seems to be just disappearing. And one more question. More Jimmy Graham. We talked about that. Earlier. If you want to go back and watch.
Are the Packers better than the Niners? That's the big question. Well, not the entire question, because this is at Lambeau Field, and last week the Vikings were at home. So, and I guess we'll find out when they come here. November, October, late October. Monday Night Football.
Monday Night Football. I'm on with some Monday night. That's it.
But yeah, I would say they are right now.
All right, why don't you wrap it up for everybody?
I'll wrap it up for everyone. Lambeau Field's right there. He's Pete. I'm Ryan. We're going to go inside the building now and give you all content from today's game that you can find on PackersNews.com. Check back later. Thanks for participating. We'll see you. Take care.
Yeah.
I got the wave from Stu.
I was just going to say, no, I was going to say,